Hello, everybody. This is Servette Hassan. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc. It is Sunday night in Southern California here, and I have a really great guest for you tonight. There's a lot going on in the country right now, and a lot in the world, actually. I'm not just going to put it all on us, but there's one thing that I find that helps everybody. I talk about this a lot on the show. It's about our consciousness. And I have a person on the line. Our guest today is Katie Hurley, and she even has a show on Clear Source Radio as well called Conscious Commerce, which is about mindful business. And she also kind of designs all of her businesses around conscious culture making. She's done a lot of things. She's an entrepreneur. She's had so many leadership roles, and including creating spas, one called Valio that was a 5-star spa for J.W. Marriott in Chicago, and she's just done one in Pennsylvania, which we're going to talk about. And she's worked in many different capacities in asset management, turnarounds, risk mitigation. She's a businesswoman. But at the heart, all of that said, she's also a healer, because I looked at all the work she's done and I thought, my God, she's even certified in the healing arts. I mean, there was one practitioner certificate, I believe, in neuro-linguistic programming, hydrotherapy, massage therapist, personal trainer, and then a lot of philosophy practitioner kinds of things. So she is. So I think what she actually really kind of does, the feel I got out of everything that she sent me, and then in talking to her a little bit prior to the show, is that she helps people. She's a healer at heart. And she helps clients find their voice, which in her worldview, and in mine as well, is their energy. Their unique way of expressing themselves in the universe. And I talk about this all the time. When we find our true selves, that's when we find our success. So here she is, Katie Hurley.
Hello.
Hello. How are you? First of all, you're calling from Pennsylvania, and I really appreciate that because it's already late there, and you know, we're all tired. It's Sunday night, so thank you.
Well, I've just got to jump on everyone with being able to take in the bath of the moon for a couple of hours.
Yes, that's the biggest moon of the year.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Was it beautiful? Well, after we're off the line, I have to walk my doggies one last time for the night. When I went out earlier, I didn't see it. It was too overcast here. So
gotcha.
Hopefully, yes, I will bask in the moon as well. I may even howl.
Right?
Yeah, I'm in that mood. I need to howl. I could use some of that. Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about you. You've done a lot. And like I said, I really got down to the teaching experience and then all of these licenses and certifications. And I was like, holy cow, when did this woman sleep? You know?
Bless your heart.
Well, you know, you've been in corporate America for 20 years as well. So it's like, well, you know, holy cow. Oh, and I have to mention your nickname. I loved this. It was Lightning Rod, which I love because you keep people warmed up and energized. And I thought who gave you that nickname?
I was consulting for a project in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And we were sitting around a table, and they said, "Oh my God, you're like an enlightening rod."
Yeah, I love
it. Oh
it.
my goodness, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's perfect for you. Okay, so let's just backtrack a little bit here. Let's start at the beginning. How did Katie Hurley get in this healing body, mind, business world?
Well, you know, the funniest thing is that the only thing I can say at this moment in time is that the way in which I've had the opportunity to experience the things I've experienced has been my willingness to respond to things that absolutely did not make sense. Mm-hmm. And I say that with, you know, just impeccable clarity. It's like, okay, I, you know, went from being, you know, I guess, a steel worker by night, massage therapist by day, had the opportunity to be a personal massage therapist for somebody who was a very wealthy venture capitalist, who allowed me the opportunity to really look at a business plan for a massage business back in the 90s that was the Great American Back Rub. And it was in New York, and they were looking for venture capital. And my client said to me, hey, look, take a look at this. And the funniest part of that story is I must have put that thing in my backpack, taken it out, showed it to him. There were not enough highlighters back in the day, and the only thing left on the page was end and the. And I said, I don't know anything about this business stuff. What do you want me to do with this? He says, well, you read the whole thing, and you read it lots of times. What do you think? And I go, well, I don't really know what to think. He goes, well, if you were going to do this, what would you do? And it was like, yeah. And he goes, really? He goes, okay, let's just go find a place and do it. So I was extremely responsive to the generosity of somebody that was really disinterested in truly coming from a place of generosity to mentor and coach me into getting an MBA, when really I had a degree in physical education and I was a steel worker. So I wound up being thrown into this world of negotiating leases, doing pro formas, raising capital, designing a facility, equipping a facility, writing a human resources manual. I mean, everything that you could possibly do from soup to nuts.
Well, yeah.
I had an opportunity to do in a very, very short amount of time.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot more to it than people think. And, not a whole lot of people know what an EBITDA is. You have to learn. You have to figure out what everything that businesses entail. So you were but see, I think truly, Katie, I don't think anything happens by accident. I really don't.
And I think that is really what I'm hoping that your listeners maybe receive even more of a jump start on their own inspiration. It was, when you look back, you could never have planned this trajectory. It's not a traditional or formal path.
Right.
It was completely just responding to the energy of the moment, and then the rest of it was trusting that the experience that you have is going to present you in a way that energetically you're prepared for the next experience. Right.
I totally agree. And
the next experience will stretch you, and that's pretty much what's happened. So I went from being, like I said, a steel worker, a massage therapist, to a entrepreneur who didn't know what she was doing, to one that maybe knew a little bit more what she was doing years later, to then being able to support other entrepreneurs and other corporate businesses in how to have an ownership culture in corporate America and how to do business consciously and to do business consciously in a totally unapologetic way.
Right. Well said. I like that. Well, yeah, it's true though, because everything, if you heard my story, it's a series of those kinds of events that took me to, a failed soap company, but then I wrote the book, and then I was at, New Age shows and giving lectures, and the publisher was there, and it's one little thing that connected me to another little thing that took me to where I am,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into it's a long story, but it's a fun story. And so when you're saying these things, I get it. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, so then this happened and then that happened. And then you sort of veered off into the world of energy healing.
And I think that, the tradition that I have been most, formed and shaped by is really, it's kind of like, well, are you Eastern or are you Western? I mean, when you really think about the soup of consciousness, your energy is probably the most important asset you have and the one that maybe gets paid attention to the least.
Right.
And, when people are saying, oh, these people are toxic, or, oh, this is negative, or this is, it's, the most important thing about energy is not to give it a name, but to allow yourself to experience it. And when you experience it, you know whether or not you resonate with that vibration, or that's a vibration that doesn't necessarily support your well-being.
Right.
And it's, and it's kind of like you decide, it's almost like, being a chef for your own consciousness and deciding what spices you're going to put in the thing that you call, your own food of being a human being. What is your recipe? What really tastes juicy and delicious for you? And how do you feel that in every nook and cranny of your being?
Right. Right. Okay. So I know how I define consciousness. How do you define it?
The way that I define consciousness is the experience of being present, aware, possibly reflective and contemplative in an active way. That you are aware, you're present, you experience. That's how I describe consciousness.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
It's something that is not stagnant. I give the example of if you're walking on a tightrope and you are 3 inches off of the ground and you lose your balance, no harm, no foul. If you're walking on a tightrope across a waterfall like the Niagara Falls on the East Coast and you lose your balance, you could lose your life. So it's really about fine-tuning your being in such a way that you are dynamically polarized, where you are experiencing yourself in the vertical and the horizontal, that you realize that you are as expansive and contracted as you need to be in order to maintain whatever it is that really kind of gives you that vibration above neutral that really feeds your soul.
Right. Well, because I think of consciousness, I think it is your beingness. And in order to create change, we're creating our reality. We are creating all the time, no matter what. All of us are, whether we're aware of that fact or not. We are creating what is our reality at this moment, because this is an effect of what we created, an hour ago or 10 years ago. It doesn't matter. So I feel like if you want to change anything in your life, or you want to be anything different, you have to change your consciousness.
And I think that by changing your consciousness, and when you teach people the art of mindful living, mm-hmm. you allow yourself to experience your consciousness versus distracting yourself with all sorts of things you imagine, that keep you from actually experiencing the experience you're having.
Right. Exactly. So, and I find the most effective way for me to do this all day long, and I do it pretty much really a lot, is that I meditate first thing in the morning, because that sort of sets the stage for me for the rest of the day to remain aware and to remain in contact with my higher self and to be in constant contact with that.
Well, and I think that when people are in constant contact with what you call their higher self, mm-hmm. My experience is they can't help but be happier.
Right.
There's an energy of joy that is experienced more frequently, and it becomes the thing that you go. It's almost the absence of that experience is what prompts you to either sit on the meditation cushion, go for a walk in nature, something to just really kind of clear your mind It's the absence of that experience. And the only way to really figure out that it's an experience that's going to nourish you is by doing it enough where you give yourself an invitation to experience a different experience.
Right. Well, I totally.
And that's what's so hard. People say, oh, my God, I don't have time to meditate. Well, when they meditate, they find out, holy cow, I never knew that I could feel this good.
Yeah, you exactly. And when people say that to me, I say, well, listen, you don't tell me you don't have time to brush your teeth. You know,
that's exactly right. Yep.
You do what you have to do. See, if I don't meditate, I'm a freaking wreck by noon. You know, if I've somehow missed that moment, I'm bumping into walls and I'm a mess. I know it. I know when I've missed. I just don't miss it. I can't. You know, it's like not taking a shower.
So if you have a listener on the line right now and they completely relate to you saying that if I didn't meditate, I'd be a wreck by noon, and if they really kind of check in with themselves and say, you know something, I'm pretty much a wreck by noon, maybe this meditation thing would work for me, what would you encourage them to do?
Well,
that would be like, you know, I don't want to say easy, but what could they do?
Right. Well, first of all, meditation is not this sit in a pretzel and get, you know, in weird shapes and light incense and get an altar and 20 minutes later you're still there. To me, it's not that at all. It can be really literally 5 minutes in the morning. 5 minutes will change your life. I almost guarantee that. But it can be, first of all, it can be walking. It can be even doing dishes if you can get in that meditative state. I don't recommend that though. What I do recommend is that first thing in the morning when you wake up, before the world has started, the TV goes on and the coffee's going and all, you just take 5 minutes then when you first open your eyes, because that is when your brain is most plastic, scientifically proven that it's more easily neurally rewired first thing in the morning because you're quite not all there yet. And just take 5 minutes to just not think about the day or what's coming or what you didn't do or did do or any worldly things other than I'm just going to sit here for a minute and listen to my higher self. And if I need to ask questions, I will, but otherwise I'm just going to listen to my higher self and let it go. That's it, pretty much, in a nutshell.
Well, and you know, when that is one of the things that very similarly I would encourage people to do at work. When they take their 15-minute break, because they get one, right?
Right.
To just go ahead and take 5 minutes of the 15 and do exactly what it is you just said.
Right. And I do it a couple of times a day. And at night before I go to sleep, I do a gratitude meditation. I don't think about anything I did wrong. I don't deny anything I did wrong, but I just be grateful for what I do have in my life, and more importantly, for what I don't have in my life. Equally as important. Yes. Wow. And I had a client once who got very wealthy, very well in business after working with me for a few years, and I'm not the only one that takes credit for that. He did a lot of work, but he was never going to meditate in the morning. And early on, when I first met him, and I said, just take then just a minute even. Can I get you down to a minute? And he said yes, and he came back a month later, and he said it worked. And I said, well, what did you do in a minute? And he said, well, I just woke up in the morning, I opened my eyes, and I laid in bed there, and I said, God, I'm yours. Take me, I'm yours. Whatever you want to do with me, you do it, you're in charge. That was it. That was his whole minute, and it changed his life. Because he was just giving, that surrender, that kind of powerful surrendering, Okay, so that said, Katie, do you meditate?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do you do it daily?
I do.
Good. So
Yep.
you have a practice that you do consistently.
Well, and I think that one of the things that I realized was I studied a form of deep tissue body work called Zen body therapy way back in the day. And it was structural integration, and one of the most important things about Zen body therapy was that you sat in meditation, which they called Zazen, before you were able to put your hands on another being. So you really took the time to get as clear as you possibly could, to then be with another being doing the work that we were doing.
Right.
And what I realized about that training was it helped me personally more than I even imagined it helped my work with the client. That I was more energized, I was less anxious, I was more peaceful, all of these different things.
Right.
And it was really just about clearing your mind. Now, when I started to get into the spa, fitness, and wellness arena, and corporations would come into a hotel, for instance, and they'd want to do some kind of a wellness activity. And the way that I would introduce them to meditation was we would walk around in a major city, could have been New York, Chicago, Portland, wherever it was at the time. We would take a mindful bell, and I would say, okay, we're going to be walking in a very, very noisy area. This many minutes of the walk, I want you to think of a question, the same question over and over and over again. Just repeat it. Every time you think you get distracted, just try to bring it back, try to bring it back, try to bring it back. When I ring the bell, I want you to wait for the answer. It was almost like you described your client with the surrendering, where, just wait for an answer.
Right.
And it's amazing. People who would have never meditated before came back and shared their experience on how powerful that was. And it was less than a 10-minute walk in a very, very, very noisy urban location. You can do it on a train. You can do it walking down the street with your dog. So the meditation is really, for me, just being mindful and aware of what you're doing, regardless of whether you imagine you're moving or not.
Right. That's why I also said it can be even doing dishes.
That's right.
If you're just, and I think why it works for you, I do the same thing before I work with clients, because I take a minute before I even see them or talk to them, or even before I did this show, I take a minute to just go into that meditation. I've been doing it for 197 years, so I can do it fast. So I go into it. I know, I've been doing it forever. So I can do it quicker than most people can, but I do go into that state. And what I find is that it does make me better at what I do, but because I'm present. I'm present. I'm not anywhere else. I'm right there. This is what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to allow Source, God, whatever you want to call it, the universe, to guide me through it. That's what I do with anything, pretty much.
Well, and one of the things that's really fired people up is the movement from maybe phone calls to text messages. And I say to people, if you find yourself receiving a text message and you go into some type of a reaction mode, allow yourself the opportunity to receive a text and receive a text in suspense. Even if it's a joyful text, just allow the power of your interpretation of those words to be something that catalyzes you being in a state of awareness versus a state of reactivity.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody is texting nowadays.
Well, right. And the I don't know if this happens to you or not. The funny thing is because I have a daughter who's just finished law school, very busy, and in a job in New York. And, she'll text, and then I'll think, okay, I need to ask her more, and this texting gets tiring to me because that's a different generation. I'm old. We used to call each other. So I'll pick up the phone.
I believe me, you and I are probably in the same genre. I prefer calling.
So I pick up the phone and call her, and she doesn't answer. It goes straight to voicemail. And I'm like, I know you have your phone. You've been texting me. And then they don't pick it up. They just don't answer. So then I'm back to texting again. And I'm very good at this because I don't react. Because and also the thing about texting, it's like emails or any form of writing. You can misinterpret it very easily, So and
I think that's the beauty of teaching meditation is when you look at how you react to something that comes across, you basically give the text, you give the email a voice. And when you give something a voice, you give it energy.
Right.
And it's interesting to see the type of energy that you assign a particular message with.
Right.
Versus imagining it could be a number of different ways it came across.
Right. That's my point exactly. Yes.
So it's the beauty. It's like you have all these different opportunities to meditate in a way that really does increase your awareness, helps you experience your experience. Like if you get a text message that really fires you up, what do you notice in your body?
Right. Yeah. And it's chemical as well as just mental. I mean, it's a physical. Your brain emits chemicals when it's angry. It emits chemicals when it's sad. It's constantly bursting out shots of things. And I don't know if you can believe in auras or not, but I think there's an energy around you, and people feel it. Even in a split second. So it's really important to not let things, shift you that quickly.
Well, speaking of auras, and because I've been in corporate America for so long, when people start talking about auras and, they're really afraid of woo-woo type stuff.
Right.
I say, okay, let's talk about the laws of optics. How many people in the room have ever seen a prism? How many people in the room have ever seen a rainbow? When light reflects off of a prism, you see the red, orange, yellow, blue, green, indigo, violet. And the reason you see it that way is because the bottom of the prism is denser than the top of the prism. And so therefore, the light reflecting off of the density is then going to reflect a particular color ray of light. Now, if you were to assign that same type of, open your mind, assign the same type of thought process to the human body. The human body, the most dense part of the human body is actually the pelvic floor, although some people would imagine it's the brain, but it really isn't.
It's the
pelvic
root.
floor.
It's the root chakra. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you look at, things that talk about auras or, chakras or all this other stuff, you normally have the color red that's associated with that area of the body.
Right.
And that's because that area of the body is the most dense. And as you go up the body, there's less vital organs. You've got your lungs. That's a little bit less dense. Your brain is a fluid mass. That's actually a little bit less dense. And if you do have the opportunity to experience seeing an aura, you're basically seeing light reflecting off of a physical mass that's actually very similar to the quality of a prism.
Right.
There's nothing woo-woo about it.
No, there's nothing woohoo. I see auras all the time, so you can't tell me that. But even when I try to explain it to others, I say, you can see light around things too. I mean, I can see it around a tree, and then if I can train them to look at that, see that, then they get it. They can understand it.
Well, and I would imagine, and I don't know how you train people to see auras, but I would imagine that one of the ways that you could at least, give yourself an invitation to expand your vision would be to meditate so that you could be more present with what you're seeing.
Right. You have to be in a calmer state. Also, they're easier to see on other people or things if you're looking out of the peripheral vision of your eye and not directly at something. It's much easier to see and people see them, they just don't notice that they see them. So that's interesting too. Yes. Wow, this is a fascinating conversation.
What's really fascinating is I think that more, you impact so many people across the world with your show, and, what's happening is us as human beings, we're no longer really able to separate the sacredness of ourselves from the secular. We go to work and we are who we are, regardless of whether we're working or not. And more people are just willing to take a risk and be themselves wherever they are.
Mm-hmm. That's what I teach. Yeah.
And so here all of a sudden, there is this, we've opened up the floodgates, and what, may not have been allowed in, quote unquote, corporate America 10 years ago is now something that everybody wants to know how they can add meditation to their wellness program, how they can elevate the consciousness of their culture, how they can be more, they may need to learn empathy, they may need to learn boundaries, they may have to, they may need to learn inspiration. There's all of these beautiful things that were oftentimes regulated strictly to the spiritual or the sacred that are showing up.
Right. And they have nothing to do with religion or anything else. They're just practices. They're just spiritual exactly right. practices, which is okay. I'm going to open the lines if that's okay with you.
Please.
Okay. Anybody out there want to have a question? If you have a question for Katie, there you go. It's 949-313-8880. What I was trying to say and then put it all together is if you want an answer to a question, because really honestly, you're very knowledgeable about all of this consciousness development and meditation and moving yourself forward, and also the healing arts. So if anybody out there has a question about healing, either themselves or somebody else, I think that Katie, I feel like you've got a really good area of expertise there.
Well, one of the things that I do with folks that I ask people who work with me, I say, please invest in one thing. Go out and get yourself a kitchen timer. And you and I are going to have a conversation for 15 minutes. Now, the beauty of it is you're going to be able to see the timer, and you're going to talk about the things that are most relevant and meaningful to you. And it's your responsibility to really maximize your time. I'm here for you, and I want you to really look at what's pressing for you, what's up for you, what really does your voice, what do you need to express today? And I went from doing hour consultations to 15 minutes or less Because when people start to really get in touch with themselves, sometimes they just need to check in on something real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's really really encouraging anybody out there who might think, oh my goodness, you know, just put it out there. Give us a call and let us support you in whatever it is that you might want to know.
Yes, absolutely. 949-313-8880. It's a perfect opportunity to do that, and it's true. You know, when you have less time, you can get more succinct, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Did you, I know you've done a lot of, did you get into the Reiki art healing aspect of anything, any of that energy type of healing at all?
I was never formally trained in Reiki, although every one of my bodywork training programs, except for two, had what they would call an energetic component. Now, one of the people who I think is an absolutely outstanding healing arts practitioner is a woman named Mary Nelson. She was the originator of something called Stone therapy. She's doing something now that is strictly an energy experience with sacred gemstones. And Mary's work was the first time that I really tangibly felt a Reiki session from very far away. So she was in Arizona, and I was on the East Coast, and I was going through some stuff, and she said, you know something, I'm just going to send you some Reiki. And I have to tell you, I felt this Reiki, this energy, from head to toe.
Wow.
And that was something where I was like, you know, if people do not have any experience of energy work, then I imagine Reiki would be something that would be extremely beneficial for them to expose themselves to.
Right. That's why I asked about it. But you've got so many things under your belt here. I'm sure you work with energy anyway, so it's not.
Well, the way that I work with energy is, I mean, I think that I really try to help people find their voice.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell a lot about the person based upon their voice. And, you know, people, even when you meet someone in the street and you say, how are you?
Right.
And, you know, and you listen to their voice when they respond,
mm-hmm.
you really are going to know how well they are.
That's true. That's true.
You know, so my form of energy work is to really listen to the voice and the vibration of the voice to support the individual in experiencing their own experience.
That's very cool. And it's true, because you do hear it. You hear a lot. You do. You know, I think it's really interesting. So what would you help them find their voice. So are you a consultant for that? If someone wanted to do that, could they call you and set up a session? So do you do private consultations, or do you just work for companies? How do you set this up?
Well, I think that the people that I think I have been, I guess, developed to serve are entrepreneurs that work in this kind of wellness, healing, arts, healthcare arena. Because the thing about an entrepreneur is that an entrepreneur really is their private self and their professional self are really no different. Whatever is really showing up in their leadership framework that might not be optimal for them shows up in their business. So I look at where they might be polarized, and I'll give you a good example. Mm-hmm. Some people in business are very, very good in vision. They can take businesses, they can see the ideas 10 years prior to anybody else. It's like I tell them, oh, you're the stardust grabbers. You're the ones that take the stardust as it comes down from the universe, and you know that this idea is going to be phenomenal, and you have to wait maybe 10 years, but you saw it coming.
Mm-hmm.
So those are like the visionary folks. The reality folks are like the chief financial officers of business. They're the ones that quantify and qualify everything. They're the ones where metrics matter. They're the ones who maybe dive into the minutia. And there's other ones who I say are like the human relations officers. They are the ones that are empathic. They're principled. They're compassionate. They're forgiving. They're loving. They practice service, and sometimes at the expense of their own selves. And that's one of the things that we work with, is specifically with healers. Healers oftentimes practice service at the expense of their own selves. Mm-hmm. And so we look at the voice behind that. Lastly, there are people who are very powerful. And the voice is a voice that either, when it's really steady, eddy, and powerful, it's a influencer beyond comprehension. When it's too much, people experience them as intimidating. Mm-hmm. When it's too little, when there's not enough power in the voice, people imagine those folks are timid. So the power of the voice, mm-hmm. and how you cultivate a visionary voice, a realistic voice, a courageous voice, and an ethical voice is all about how you become well, powerful, strong, and influential. And you do that through your voice, because your voice is an expression of your energy, whether it be written or verbal. That's why public speaking, for some people, it scares the living heck out of them.
Right.
And for other people, they love it. Some people are writers and not speakers. Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever done your book on tape?
No. But I've never been asked to do my book on tape. It's, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
I imagine with the power of your voice, mm-hmm. Because again, when people read a book,
right,
sometimes they are not surrendering to the energy of the author. They are reading it in the voice that may be a voice of a critic. It may be the voice of a detractor. It may be the voice of a judge, jury, and an executioner. So I say to people, when you're reading work, conscious work, mindful work, put the book down if you find yourself judging the content. And allow yourself to pick it back up in the spirit of surrender, and allow that voice to permeate your being in a way that you can experience the message.
Right. Very good. Well, I'm going to open up the line one last time, 949-313-8880. Especially if you're an entrepreneur that has a question about your voice, now would be the time to call. I have so many people, Katie, I cannot tell you, who after the show will say, well, I was going to call, and then I have this question now, and I'm like, it's hard for them.
Well, and the others, regardless of whether it's entrepreneurship or business in general, what is happening right now is you'll hear words in marketing like curated content, the digital journey.
We have a caller here. Hold on one second. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Servette. I'd rather not use my name.
That's all right.
On the radio.
Problem. No
but
problem.
I just wanted to say hello to you and to Katie.
Hi.
And how much I've enjoyed listening to both of you.
Thank you.
And I find Katie's beliefs and comments on the power of a voice extremely intriguing. And I suppose I have a question as well as maybe a statement. But when Katie was describing voices as visionary or ethical, if one, okay, let's see if I can put this in words. If you as yourself believe in what you're saying, do you think the person you're speaking to responds to that intuitively or on a cellular level?
Well, my response to your question is an extremely insightful question. Is if you imagine that your voice is energy, and not only is it the energy of the words that you're saying, the vibration is going to the recipient of your communication. Whether or not they're washed over with joy or they recoil in absolute fear is not so much the words that you said as much as it is how they experience a vibration. You could say to someone, I love you so deeply. And instead of that person being washed over with joy, they may recoil in fear because they have not been awashed with that level of generosity in a very long time. So, I'm curious in you bringing that question to us. Has there been something that you find yourself saying that is or is not received in the way in which you intend?
Yes. and
Tell us
I'm
about
sitting
that.
I'm sitting outside and I'm looking at this beautiful supermoon on the eve of the full moon. So I'm trying to tap into being outdoors and sort of meditating. And yes, I was speaking to a friend, and with the utmost sincerity and only with the intent of helping. And the friend turned around and said, this is making me uncomfortable and it's making me defensive. And I simply asked, what is it that you want from this situation? Because I felt that she was sort of all over the map. And when she said, you're making me feel defensive and uncomfortable, I took a step back because that was not my intent at all. My intent was simply, well, let's organize your thoughts and what is it you want? What outcome do you want from this situation? And I felt terrible because my intent was not to make her feel uncomfortable and defensive.
Well, and I so much appreciate you for coming to the show and being vulnerable and talking with us about this. And if you were open to imagining that you in that moment really were giving her the gift of healing, and when you noticed her and you noticed where she says, I'm getting defensive, right? Mm-hmm. If that situation ever occurs again, one of the most healing things you can do is say, I appreciate you for saying, I'm getting defensive. What are you noticing in your body? Because when someone says they're getting defensive, what they're doing is experiencing a sensation that is something that doesn't feel good to them. And you are not the cause of it. Your words were the catalyst. So as a person who only wants the best for your friend, if you could hold a space and be present with her and say, I appreciate you for saying, I'm getting defensive. I'm curious. What are you noticing in your body right now? And whatever she responds really doesn't make a difference. It's just giving her the opportunity to experience the experience of defensiveness. Because defensiveness is just a word that we describe a sensation in our body that doesn't feel open. It feels like we want to shut down, contract, And what you really want to do is to just allow that sensation to go to its end point. It's like dropping a stone in the pond and watching the vibration. So when your words serve as the pebble in the pond, and it starts a vibration, and the vibration is met with, oh God, no, then you honor it and you say, I appreciate this for being there. What are you noticing in your body? You'll be amazed. Now, you might get prepared for a whole lot of tsunami activity. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
And you just hold that space.
Yes. And my intent, again, clearly defensiveness means I'm uncomfortable. My intent was not to make her uncomfortable, although in hindsight I realized she was making me uncomfortable. It was sort of being verbally vomited on and trying to shovel out and make sense of all of it. But it's interesting, and when you said sometimes people serve at the expense of themselves, I realize I have done that several times throughout my life, and I'm not sure where that stems from. If it's a sense of insecurity, if it's a sense of trying to right a wrong, even if you didn't create the wrong, but that sort of resonated with me.
Well, and practicing service at the expense of self is a classic, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole feminine energy versus masculine energy, but it truly is the energy that we give, and then we wonder why we don't have any more energy to give. So when we kind of look at that and say, what if I practice service in service of myself? What would that look like, and how would that be different? And I so much appreciate you for calling, and I so much appreciate you for sharing this, because the thing, my words of wisdom would be not to be so concerned about making people uncomfortable if you're willing to provide people a space of being present to them. Now, when people make people uncomfortable and then there's not really the opportunity to just be present with what's happening, then that's not as healing and wonderful as it is, where if you are uncomfortable, I'm going to be right here for you. I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Let's just kind of experience this uncomfortableness together until the comfort, which is really the absence of these negatives and the absence of the sensations that don't necessarily feel good, subside.
Very good. Now,
That makes perfect sense.
I'm not going to use your name, so I'm just going to say valuable listener, who I love. Did that help? I mean, that was not only an insightful question, that was a very insightful answer, I feel.
Well, yes. I've enjoyed listening to both you and Katie this evening.
Great.
And yes, that was very helpful. And it's just helped me turn my perspective. And I had apologized to this friend, and we were able to move forward in a more positive conversation. And I did more fully understand her position, and she felt threatened, not by me, but by her situation. So in that sense, I did understand her, but no, this was great. I've been taking notes, and I have things to contemplate tomorrow morning when I meditate.
Oh, good. Thank you for calling. We're running out of time, and I really appreciate you.
I'll let you
Thank
go.
you so much.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Bye. That was a great question, Katie,
It
and
was.
a really great answer. And we are running short on time, but I could do this again several times before we get to, this is a great show. It really was. Now, I want you to have the opportunity to tell everybody out there how to find you or, get in touch with you if they need to.
The best way to, I'm always, I'm online on Skype a lot, and my Skype handle is B Vallejo, which is B as in boy, E as in Edward, V as in Victor, A as in Apple, L as in Larry, E as in Edward, O as in Oscar. And even bvallejo.com is my website. I do a radio program on our network at 7 o'clock Tuesday mornings, and I talk about conscious commerce, which is really consciousness. It's basically your real nature in business.
Right.
So I'd love for anyone to tune in. It is 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and, we also kind of play it again other times of the day, but it would be really nice. And then every once in a while, every couple weeks, I get inspired to do a blog post. I can't help myself. The whole concept of voting this week has been really up for me.
Right.
And I took the word vote, and I broke it down as an acronym, and I'm going to be writing about vote being, voices of those engaged.
Nice.
And that. Really how, if nothing else, this whole thing with voting has been you have a voice, and how engaged are you in designing a life of your own choosing and doing it in a way that supports the elevation of your consciousness.
Excellent. I love it. Now, how can somebody read that post or that blog? Is it?
It's going to go on bvallejo.com.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
So, and I will actually post it on our network when it should probably be up no later than Wednesday morning.
Good.
And it should be fun to read.
Good. I'm excited. I'll read it for sure. I have so enjoyed this show. This was a lot of fun. I wasn't sure where it was going to go, and I could talk for another 2 hours. So I really enjoyed you, Katie. I'm going to say the name of your website again. It's bvallejo.com, right?
That's correct.
And it's BEVALEO.
Yeah.
We only have like a minute left, but what does Vallejo mean? Can I ask?
Vallejo means to be well, powerful, strong, and influential.
There you go. And that's what we all need. We could all use that. Katie, thank you so much. Please do it with us again soon. And I appreciate you for being on the show tonight. Thank you.
I appreciate you, Servette. Bye-bye now.
Bye. Well, that was Katie Hurley, and that was a great, great show. And I've only got a minute left, so please look at anything you need about me on my website, www.servettehassan.com. It's SERVETHASAN.com. And I have been blogging every day, Memos from My Higher Self, which explores consciousness, so which will hopefully, propel you to explore your own, because as we were talking about this whole show, it's all about your consciousness. And I'm going to continue doing that, and I probably may do it another year because I'm having a lot of fun and I love doing it, and why not? And also I'll put the whole set of this year into book form. And private sessions, workshops, not so many of those till next year because things are slowing down for the holidays, if you can believe that. And Christmas and New Year's are both on a Sunday, so I will not have shows on those nights. But we'll be around, and lots of new and exciting things are going to be happening in the new year. So please stay tuned. And again, it's all about you being you to the full. Be you to the full. That's what's truly beautiful. And thank you for joining me, and hopefully we'll again. Thanks. Good night.